Hey everybody, this is Justin from Save and Reload, and today we're bringing you another closer look at the world of gaming by exploring the evolution of Call of Duty. I'm not going to spend a super long time going in depth on every single Call of Duty title because that would be extremely lengthy and very boring, so instead I'm going to skim over the series as a whole, focusing on individual games along the way very briefly. So we're going to start with the original Call of Duty, which was released in 2003 by Infinity Ward. This Call of Duty game was only released on the PC, and then later it was introduced onto the console in the form of a downloadable title on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. The original Call of Duty ran on the Quake 3 engine and supported massive multiplayer that we didn't see later until much further into the series many years later. The multiplayer actually supported 64-player combat. And the original Call of Duty actually proved to be so successful that Call of Duty 2 was set into development not soon after its release, meaning that Call of Duty 2 had a release date of 2005, and it was also released by Infinity Ward. It used a proprietary engine called the IW engine. It was a modified version of the Quake 3 engine, but this really allowed Call of Duty 2 to really come into its own as a title, and it received absolutely stellar reviews, mostly for its sound design, which it won a large amount of awards for. The thing with Call of Duty 2 that made it somewhat controversial to players is that it only supported 8 players in the multiplayer per team. It also introduced the health regen system we're familiar with in the Call of Duty series instead of a health bar, which had been a more traditional way of displaying player health throughout the first-person shooter genre. However, Call of Duty 2 still proved to be successful throughout this controversy and sold 2 million copies as of 2008. And again, this game proved to be so successful that Call of Duty 3 was developed not shortly afterwards. Treyarch actually was the first company to release a new game in the Call of Duty franchise that wasn't Infinity Ward. And Call of Duty 3 actually introduced vehicle combat, and it was the first game that was originally console only. So it was only released for consoles instead of being released as a PC and console title at the same time. It supported 48-player multiplayer on Xbox 360 and PS3, and a lower amount on the original Xbox and the PS2. So Call of Duty 3 was really the first time that a Call of Duty game had been taken into the hands of another company, but then it freed up Infinity Ward to go on to their next big title, which many of us came into as our first Call of Duty title, which was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was released in 2007 and was Infinity Ward's next step in the Call of Duty series. What we saw on Call of Duty games was a theme that centered around World War II, so Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare took that and flipped it on its head and really introduced a brand new take on what a Call of Duty game could be. It introduced things in multiplayer such as the perk system, and it was actually the first Call of Duty game to receive an M rating, which actually might have led to it getting more reception from critics as a serious contender in the video game market, even though Call of Duty had been proven to be an extremely successful franchise already. So Call of Duty 4 really represented a revolution in the Call of Duty games, and it freed up Infinity Ward and Treyarch to work on 2 different types of games, which leads into Call of Duty World at War, not referred to as Call of Duty 5 very often, but this was the next Call of Duty game developed by Treyarch, which came out in 2008. Call of Duty World at War was the first game to introduce something that was not quite a secondary game type, but essentially you had the campaign of the game, you had the multiplayer of the game, and that was all you had in any other Call of Duty. But Call of Duty World at War introduced something called Nazi Zombie Mode, which has been iterated upon and also kind of traded across the Modern Warfare and the World at War and Black Ops lines to kind of become its own third multiplayer and single-player combat system. Nazi Zombie Mode was something you could play with your friends, and it essentially represented the wave-based combat we'd seen in other successful game franchises like Gears of War. The next Call of Duty game was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which came out in 2009 and was developed by Infinity Ward, and this featured Infinity Ward's answer to Treyarch's Nazi Zombie Mode in the form of Spec Ops, which was either a single-player or multiplayer, basically cooperative version of a shortened campaign, which didn't have any kind of flow from level to level, but essentially featured different levels that were custom-tailored for use of 2 people sometimes. One of those was the It was actually a recreation of the mission in Modern Warfare, the fourth Call of Duty game, where one player would be in a giant plane called an AC-130 firing down for support on their other player, which was actually on the ground. This was one of the most memorable moments from the Call of Duty 4 game and became one of the most successful Spec Ops levels in Modern Warfare 2. Modern Warfare 2 also introduced custom kill streaks, which allowed you to really customize your multiplayer experience. It really introduced a lot more customizability than any other Call of Duty game had in the series. The next Call of Duty game was Call of Duty Black Ops, which was a Treyarch game. It was released in 2010, and Black Ops was Treyarch's more jump forward, and it's proven to be one of the most successful Call of Duty games and one of the most well-received. There wasn't a whole lot new that it introduced that wasn't seen as an iterative version of multiplayer from Call of Duty, but it did introduce something fun called, it was custom gun paint jobs. Players could actually do even more to customize their multiplayer experience than you'd seen in any other Call of Duty game. And the next one, Modern Warfare 3, was released in 2011 by Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer Games. It was essentially just another Modern Warfare game and introduced new game modes and such like every other Call of Duty game has, but it was the final Modern Warfare game, which freed Infinity Ward up to move on to other Call of Duty projects. This was closely followed by Call of Duty Black Ops 2, released in 2012 by Treyarch, the next entry in the Call of Duty Black Ops series, and that was followed up upon by Infinity Ward in 2013 with the release of Call of Duty Ghosts. Call of Duty Ghosts was the first next-gen Call of Duty game. It was released subsequently for PS3, Xbox 360, and Xbox One and PlayStation 4, and it was all at the same time. The nice thing is, people that were on the Xbox 360 and PS3 could still enjoy a new Call of Duty experience without having to upgrade to a new console. With the announcement of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare just a couple of weeks ago with the release of a cinematic trailer, a lot of Call of Duty fans are left wondering, well, what's going to be new about this game? What's going to make this Advanced Warfare be the new defining game in the Call of Duty franchise? A lot of those questions can be answered by looking backward a little bit, which is essentially what we've been doing in this video, looking at the progression of Call of Duty as it's been released since 2003. It's impossible to speculate on information that we don't have, so that's why it's important to speculate based on information we do. And what we do have is a pattern. Call of Duty, as it was originally released in 2003, was a very successful game, mostly because its gameplay at its core was very robust, and it was essentially one of the best and smoothest running first-person shooter games that was out there. And each company that has released a Call of Duty game since has iterated upon that original design concept, and this has proven to be a very successful business model, being that Call of Duty has sold an overwhelming amount of copies since its original release as a franchise in total. So Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, what are my guesses? My take on it is that it's going to be a newer game with newer graphics and 60 frames per second and all those things that we're used to from new Call of Duty games. And we'll just refer to those as Call of Duty Next. So every Call of Duty Next that comes out is going to be shinier graphics. It's going to have more overwhelming multiplayer, maybe some new game modes, new maps. Every Call of Duty Next has those features, but what is going to be new that we're not expecting in Advanced Warfare? What I would guess is that it's going to be an answer to other first-person shooters that are out there, such as the game we focused on in our last video, Titanfall. The Advanced Warfare trailer actually features some elements of verticality, which Call of Duty has had a lack of for a long time. It's a ground-based multiplayer first-person shooter. So if Advanced Warfare and the trailer that accompanied its announcement is indicative of anything, it's that Call of Duty is attempting to possibly try to redefine what its multiplayer combat can be. And this is not a bad thing. The important thing is, if they don't keep the core gameplay as consistent and recognizable and fun to play as they have for years and years, if they mess that up, they're going to have a big problem on their hands, because people like Call of Duty for its core gameplay mechanics, and that's something that is one of the most valuable parts of Call of Duty. So what I would hope for the future for Advanced Warfare is that it's going to redefine what Call of Duty can be year over year. And this is the first Call of Duty game that's being developed by a completely different studio. It's being developed by Sledgehammer Games. We haven't seen a whole lot of what Sledgehammer Games can do in the Call of Duty universe, let's say. So it could be that Sledgehammer Games is going to be extremely ambitious and introduce some new things to Call of Duty that we weren't even expecting. This is going to be great for gamers if I'm right, because it will really introduce the true next-gen experience of what multiplayer first-person shooters can be, and it could be the most successful Call of Duty game yet. I would love to see this because as games improve, whether you're a fan of Call of Duty or you're not, if it improves over what has been done before, this will push the entire industry forward. Just like Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare redefined the wheel of the first-person shooter and advanced the genre forward so much, so fast. It's a great thing to see. Hopefully Advanced Warfare will be everything we expect and more, but only the future will tell us. This has been Justin from Save and Reload. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.